Okay, welcome everyone to our webinar this afternoon. Today, Kenton is hosting. Kenton, it's all yours.
All right. So apparently I'm not allowed to talk to some people because I'm a Seahawks fan. So that's great. I'll do all the talking. You don't have to talk back. so, but yeah, so this is my first webinar. So if I'm a little nervous, please grant me some grace in that aspect. If I start speaking too fast, maybe say something so that I can slow down. My hope is that as we go through the different processes, that we'll have a little bit of time to be able to do some questions regarding each of the subjects as we work our way through. The total presentation, if I just go straight through, was about 20 minutes. So that leaves us some time for dialogue because zone management is definitely something we have time for some conversations on. So, well, all right.
Kenton, sorry to interrupt real quick. I just wanted to say, if people have questions, they can type it in the chat and then you can see that it's at the bottom of your screen.
Yeah, I have the.
Okay, just so they know. No, so if you want to tell them, they know, so they know.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Some people aren't familiar.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead and type in any of those questions or anything, and I will try to address those as we go or as we have breaks in the material, because there is definitely some natural transition there for you. All right, and everybody can see that we have the little slide up here, I'm hoping. All right, so let's get into ServiceDesk Zonne Management. So ServiceDesk Zonne Management can help your company by managing your availability, which can improve your optimization, your scheduling, and help to reduce overbooking. My name is Kenton, and I am one of your Rossware support champions. Today, we'll be talking about our zone management system within ServiceDesk. In our 4 areas of focus that we're going to try to hit is what is a zone, kind of the basic concept of that. What are the components of the zone management inside of ServiceDesk? And then the basics and the advanced. As we move forward, actually, the basics and the advanced have to do with more of the components, the basic components, and then we have some additional stuff that can be added that help to create a more advanced environment in your zone management. And we'll discuss those as we move forward. So what is a zone? This is a big picture question. What is a zone? Well, the definition of a zone is that it's a noun and it stands for a continuous area that differs in some respect or is distinguished for some purpose from adjoining areas or within which certain distinctive circumstances exist or are established. So what does that mean when we put it into the context of ServiceDesk? What that means is in ServiceDesk, zone is a geographic subsection of your service territory, which you can assign availability capacities to in order to manage internal and external scheduling. These subsections, which we'll call zones going forward, are generated by listing zip codes you want associated together using a file called the zone list.txt. The availability capacities are set for each of your zones and are managed as part of the zone planner. So sometimes breaking up is a good thing to do. There are many ways you can decide to break up your zone, your service territory. The key is to divide it how it best serves your needs. I'm going to go through just a couple general concepts of how we can break up your service territory using the zone management system and kind of how that would look. I've given some examples here. So we can break up using existing boundaries. We can use natural made boundaries like rivers, mountains, lakes, oceans. We can use man-made boundaries like freeways, canals, and cities. Or we can use the government defined regions like the city limits, the counties, or other jurisdictions that they've created. So you'll see up here on my example, I'm going to get my little pointer here to make it a little bit easier for you to see, that we have kind of our area here. If you're not familiar, this is the Puget Sound area where we are located in Washington. And so this is just a couple of the counties that we have in our area. And so I could have grouped these counties together and created a zone out of those, and then had counties outside of those areas grouped together to form a zone. This is the same area here. And we can see here that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 zones. And what I've done is I've taken this natural body of water here that helps to kind of create some boundaries there. And then we have some freeways that are running through this area and stuff like that. And I've kind of created these little different subsections because I want to be able to break out my territory to make it into smaller, manageable chunks. We can also use a very basic breakdown of a mile radius where we can say everything within a certain mile radius is going to be my primary zone or my zone 1. And then everything outside of that area is going to be a secondary zone. This is very helpful in if you want to only occasionally work in certain areas outside of your main territory. We can also just use a basic ordinal direction method where we're just going to break it up into the northwest region, the northeast region, the southeast region, and the southwest region. All right, so here's my public service announcement for this section. The support team cannot define zones for you. We do not have the knowledge of your area of service territory to create your zones. We can assist you with the technicality of how to do that. We can make sure that their file formats or your files are correctly formatted, that you have all the needed files, but we cannot make those decisions for you. We just don't have the needed skill set to know where you work or what you need specifically for your company. All right. So does anybody have any questions for me at this point in time about the basic concept of what a zone is? All right. So why use a zone? The question is to zone or not to zone. The purpose of a zone is to break up your service territory into zones, as we call them, so we can create a matrix of rules and guidelines that allow us to make it easier for you to manage, optimize, and share your availability. Some of the points of discussion that we're going to talk about in regards to this matrix is what zip codes we covered, which technicians work in which zones, what days of the week we are in a zone, and what timeframes we offer each day in a zone. And then we also have a newer concept that connects departments to specific zones. These matrices will help us internally with routing and scheduling, and externally, they allow us to have easy way to communicate our rules and guidelines with processes that allow online scheduling, text access to possible return visit dates, and integration with third-party systems. Here, let's talk about the benefits of the zone. Well, there's some internal benefits and there's some external benefits. Some of them do crossover, but let's go ahead and just discuss those really quick. Internally, we benefit from limits that can be set based on days of the week and timeframes individually set for each zone. This helps us to isolate areas to reduce drive time or increase profitability. An example would be that if we have a specific area that maybe has some high-end appliances, so our profit margin is really high for the repair work we do on a per job basis. But when we take into consideration the fact that maybe I have to drive an hour to an hour and a half round trip to make it to that area, if I'm doing that 4 or 5 times a week, that then cuts into my profitability, and it also is going to increase my drive time. And when we have window time or drive time, that means the technician's not working on an appliance and fixing something. This also allows us to have a check system which can limit our scheduling, and which then ServiceDesk can also enforce those limits. And we can also password protect those limits as well, so that only the people that should be authorized to make those changes are able to do that. And if we want to make exceptions to that check system, then again, we can have it require a password so we can isolate and restrict who's making those changes. The zone management system also allows us to quickly see a zone's total capacity, the job count or the appointment slots that have been used, and what slots of availability are still available on a per day basis. Techs are also able then to see availability for return appointments in SD Mobile if your company is using our CyberOffice utility. This also easily removes availability for holidays and office closures, and can account for removed availability for vacations and techs being unavailable. And then we also have some new functionality within ServiceDesk using the guided text selection, which allows us to filter the technicians that are being offered for scheduling based on the zones that they belong to, and if that particular appointment that you're looking at is in that zone or not. And then the last one is the graph hopper optimization. Does use this zone management system in order to be able to correctly optimize those routes based on the technicians, where the appointment lies, and other information that we provide to it. External benefits of zone management. You manage all your availability capacities and limitations in one place. You don't have to go to Service Bench to manage Service Bench, Service Power to manage Service Power, Service Desk to manage Service Desk. We can do it all from within Service Desk, and then using our integration with our dispatch links, we can then upload those changes to those third parties throughout the day. So that next one is the automated upload of availability changes to third parties. We can easily remove availability for holidays and office closures again. Then that information then gets relayed and uploaded back to those third parties. Limits can be set based on the days of the week and the timeframes individually for each zone. Again, this allows us to isolate those areas to reduce drive time and increase profitability. And then the last one is that we can then apply holdbacks, which allow us to automatically hide or reduce offerings to third parties and retain that availability for office scheduling. All right. Does anybody have any questions about that particular section of information on why to zone? All right. So how do we make a zone? The parts that make up a zone. Well, what are the parts of the ServiceDesk Zone Management System? Well, we have our basic components, which is our zone management system, of our zone management system. So we have our zone scheduler, we have our zone planner, and the capacities that we then assign. And then we have our zonelist.txt file. More advanced components of our management system would be the zone planner, looking at the holdbacks that we can create, the flowing pipes file, which tech to which zone, .csv, and then the zonelist.txt file, but now we've added departments to that to create it a little bit more complex. Now, what utilities does RAWFOR offer that also integrate with the zone management system? Well, our SD CyberOff uses it for the online integrations for scheduling online. It's also used by mobile, which pulls the information that is uploaded by the CyberOffice utility, showing the availability to the technicians for the particular job in the zone that it is in. And then our dispatch links do use the zone management system when uploading availability to currently Service Power and Service Bench. The zone scheduler, which is Shift F5, and this is what is the visible part of the zone management system. So this is what you're going to be using to be able to see what's going on with your zone management inside of ServiceDesk. So right here we have an image of our zone scheduler, and then I kind of broken it down into some areas here for you so that we can see what these areas represent. We do have the calendar, aka the date picker, and that is where we can choose what day we want to view in the availability bar graph area down at the bottom here. That's also going to change what day we're looking at for what's displayed in the middle for our capacities, our actual job count, and our job value count. We have the options to filter what we're seeing, also using the type of availability time slots we're looking at, all day, morning, afternoon, evening, emergency, and then the all would be a combination of those. And then we can also then filter using some of the advanced features for flowing time segments. We can have it filter based on flowing pipes. We can also have it omit zones with a 0 value, which is important because that can then reduce the number of zones that are being displayed, especially in larger areas where you have number of zones greater than probably around 6 or 7. It can start getting really cluttered in here, and those extra ones that maybe on certain days you don't offer availability, having those auto hide is a really nice functionality there. So the availability bar graph listed down here in the bottom. This is going to give us our snapshot of the zone capacity, burdens, slots remaining, and can be, again, filtered by these options up here, including the option to omit the zones with a 0 value. The navigation bar up here at the top will then allow us to access our zone planner, the planner, the mini manual if you want to look at any of the ROSWare related documentation on zone management, and then your actual zone list file. Kind of just get a bit more of a breakdown of what we see in our zone bar graph here at the bottom. This does give us a quick snapshot of the zones availability for a specific day. We can see all of the zones that are there. And again, we can filter out that no capacity. We can see the current availability of slots used in each zone. So down here at the bottom, we see our job count values there. We can see the maximum capacity of each zone, which is listed up here along the top in the red. And then we can see the amounts of slots available that are left for scheduling, AKA slots nominally offered. And you can see that listed here at the top in this value here. Just a quick little thing for those who like quick little tips. Green means go, yellow means whoa, and red means stop. So if your bar graph is green, you have lots of room, go for it. If your bar graph is red, that means stop, you're out of availability. And if it's at the full load line, which is this line represented right here, that would show a yellow, and that means that, hey, you're getting close to being full, so you might want to take some time to think about that. All right, do you have any questions about the zone scheduler and the layout thereof? All right, the zone list, where the zip code meets the zone. All right, so the zone list file is a text file. And we'll just kind of go over this. The zone list is a user-created file which identifies what zip code belongs to which zone and which department a zone is a part of. Each line in the file represents a record and is broken into entries separated by a tab, which are called fields. The zonelist.txt file has the following fields used for that record. We do have a little view over here on the right. And this is if I was viewing this in Notepad++, and we'll see that we have our zip code, our zone number, our descriptive text, our department. But please note that there are no headers at the top of these files. So there's not an explanation of what field represents what information. The zone list can be created and edited using a text editor program like Notepad or Notepad++. The text editor method can be more difficult for visually inclined users as the information will not always visually line up in nice rows. Unfortunately, my example has really nice looking rows in it, but I was working on somebody's zone list yesterday because they had made some changes and theirs did not line up very nicely at all. And so I wish I would have grabbed a screenshot of it so I could have shown the difference, but I didn't think about it until today. So you also have to be very attentive to the use of tabs between the fields of information and not spaces. Some editors have a view that shows all the characters. In this view, you will often see the spaces represented by little dots, while the tabs are going to be represented by arrows. I would recommend using Notepad++ over Notepad because it does offer such a view and it is free to download. So you can see in my example here, this file was opened up in Notepad++, and I have my nice little arrows there designating for me that those are tabs. So I can quickly and easily see that my file is a tab delimited file and my information is divided by tabs. So ServiceDesk will be able to read it. If you struggle with tabs and spaces and viewing special characters, there are other options for you to use. Yes, there is. Another option is to create and edit your zone list file using a spreadsheet program such as Excel or Google Sheets. There are a couple of advantages to using a spreadsheet program, which is why this is the method that I do recommend. The information is visually organized. We can see here in my example on the right-hand side here, the spreadsheet program. And I'm open this up in Excel. You can see that we have nice columns of information. Even if there's not information there, it's still columnized for us. You can also easily manipulate the order of the information within the spreadsheet, such as using the functions to highlight and drag and drop information. Or better yet, I can actually use the spreadsheet functions to actually sort the order so that I can get those things grouped by zone numbers like I have here. If I wanted to, if I was looking for a specific zip code, I could sort it by zip code and then be able to quickly scroll through that list and see if that zip code exists or not. And then when setting up the zone list, using the autofill function to put in the same zone number or the description or the department can really speed up the process. Instead of typing one over and over and over again, I can type one and then I can use an autofill functionality to fill it all the way down through the section of the zip codes that are applicable to that particular zone. Same with the descriptions and then the departments. Do not use a word processing program like Microsoft Word, WordPerfect, or Google Docs. These programs add document-specific coding to the file and are not visible to you, but will affect how ServiceDesk reads the file. All right. And then another key here is no matter the program, make sure that you save the file as a tab delimited text file in the SDNet data folder. My next public service announcement is always make a backup of your files before editing. That way, if something goes wrong, your changes don't work as expected, you can easily revert back to the prior file. All right, so I see some questions here. Can you create nicknames for zones? That would be the descriptive text in the descriptive text here. You could put nicknames there or whatever helps you to identify where that zone is or how you want to identify that. We do use the zone number for all of our integration purposes. So if you are integrating with a third party, you need to recognize and know that when you are communicating, their zone number or their zone name has to be a single, has to be the digit version of the name. So it would have to be 1, 2, 3, 4 in the numeric value, not the written form. All right. Oh, okay, Tom. The CR and the LF are hidden characters that are not visible to your naked eye, but basically it's when you hit the return key. It stands for line feed. So basically it's moving the information to the next line. Again, like if you weren't looking at this view here with the Notepad++, it would just be the next line. It just helps us to make sure that we see that. There are other types of line feeds other than the CR LF that can be done in certain programs. I don't know if anybody has worked with Excel and how we have like the distributor numbers in our supplier file where you can put multiple distributor numbers in and you have to hit the shift enter and then it does a line feed within that contained field. So that's just those are different types of line feeds. All right. Was there any other questions that I can address? I just realized that one of the things I did not cover in detail in here was the functionality of the department list. So I will give you the oral information there. Many of you who have been using ServiceDesk for some time may have always been told one zip code, one zone. You cannot have the same zip code in multiple zones. With the addition of the department portion of the file, you can now have the same zip code listed twice. And what this does is you can have your main department, such as your standard service department, and the allocated zip codes and zone numbering that are associated with those. And then you can have a secondary department, such as in my example here, the HVAC department, that I can then duplicate those zip codes, applying them to a different set of zones. And then those zones are specifically only going to be used by the HVAC department going forward. So it does help to isolate my availability then so that I'm not accidentally offering availability for an appliance when I really don't have any appliance technicians available to do that. All I have is HVAC technicians. And it is important to note that you do not want to use the descriptive on the main account or the main zones for like your regular appliance service department. We do want one set of those blank and then one set with the descriptive. All right, flowing pipes. Now this is where your head could start to hurt because this one is one that is often very hard to explain to people. And so my descriptive text is probably not going to be enough, so I will try to go orally into a little bit more detail. The flowingpipes.txt file, again, so we can use the same methods of editing and creating the file as we use for our zone list. And again, this is a tab delimited file, so we need to make sure that we remember that we have to use tabs for that saving. The zone list file, the flowing pipes is a user created file, which creates a relationship between the flow from and the flow to zones. Each line in the file represents a record and is broken into entries separated by tabs, which we are calling fields. The flowingpipe.txt file uses the following fields. We have our flow from zone, which I'm going to be calling zone A. And then we have our flowing to zone, which I'm going to call zone B in my little description here. Again, note that unfortunately in this file, there is no headers at the top of the file to help distinguish which is which piece of information. The zone B is the zone in which you would to pass the burden from zone A. This means as I book in appointment in zone A, if the capacity reaches 0, it will pass the burden to zone B and reduce the availability capacity of zone B. So this is the part that sometimes confuses people, is that I am not flowing my availability, I'm flowing my burden. So in my file here down at the bottom, we'll see that we have these nifty little pipes with little faucets on the end. Those represent what's in my file. So in my file, my flow from is 3, my flow to is 1. So as I schedule in zone 3, you can see that I have 0 availability. If I schedule another appointment in zone 3, it's going to pass that burden over to zone 1 first because it's the first one in my file. If zone 1 was to reach 0 capacity, it would then flow from zone 3 to zone 2 if zone 2 had availability. Once zone 2 no longer has availability for me to burden with, then I would have a straight up 0 upload and I would not be able to schedule anymore that way. Okay, so over here we can see, again, the same thing. I have my pipes flowing from 3 to, zone 4, zone 6 to 4 and zone 6 to 5 there. Now notice that zone 5 in my case is overbooked. I would not be able to, and it didn't flow that over. And that's because they're not set up in my zone, my flowing pipes file as something I flow my burden to some other department. So why would I want to use flowing pipes? It's when I have the two most common reasons is one, I put all my availability in my main area because that's my main focus. I want to make sure that I always have availability in my main service territory. But I have outlining areas that I always want to make sure that I offer availability, especially when dealing with third parties. So I can set it up so I can flow my my burden from those outlining departments into my main department. And in that case, I would normally see a file where all of my flow froms are going to be different, but my flow to is always going to be the same number. The other scenario maybe is that I have outlining areas that I want to make sure that I have a standardized option of availability, but in the case of I ever actually get overbooked in my main area, I then want to be able to steal from those outlining areas. So in that case, you would see a file that's more closely related to what I have, where I have a single zone that's flowing its burden to other zones. So those are the two main reasons, or the two main focuses on that. And one of the things to make sure that you avoid is you don't want to have burden flowing from one zone into another zone, back into the zone you started with or something like that, because that creates what they call a cyclical lock in the software. So you want to make sure that you're never having your burden flowing from a zone into a zone that has its burden flowing from a zone into another zone. So confusing, huh? All right. Any questions about flowing pipes? Some of you have probably never heard of them, but may have questions about it. All right. So one of the newer files that are involved with the zone management system is the which tech to which zone.csv. This is the file that's going to create our tech to zone relationships, and we're going to start here. You can use the same programs again to edit and create your which tech to which zone.csv file. But remember that this is to be saved as a CSV file, which stands for comma separated value. Again, this file is placed in the net data folder. And specifically due to how the values are separated, this is one that I highly recommend or highly encourage people to use a spreadsheet program to create and edit. The which tech to which zone .csv file is a user created file which lists which technicians are authorized to work in a zone. Each line in the file represents a record and is broken into entries separated by commas. And those entries that are separated by commas, again, we're going to call fields. The which tech to which zone.csv file has the following fields used for it. We have our zone, and then we have the list of technicians. In my case, I have T1, T2, T3, and then where TX is the initials technicians. So those would be the initials of the technicians that I am associating with that zone. Again, there is no header at the top of the file that does not explain that. So here on the left, I have the view of the file in the text editor, and specifically I'm using Notepad++. You'll note that we have the first value, which is our zone number. We have the comma, and then in quotation marks, which I do have up here, we have that list of technicians. And the reason that we have to put those quotation marks around it is because within that list is commas. If I didn't put quotation marks around it, because it's a comma separated value file, it would see each of those as a separate entry or a separate field of information, which would break how the file is read. Again, here is my view in an Excel. Again, much easier to see that I have my zone number here, and then I have my technicians separated by commas here. How does ServiceDesk use the which tech to which zone file? It uses for a process called guided text selection, and then it also uses it for the Grasshopper route optimization process. The guided text selection is a process that filters the list of technicians for an appointment based on the zone which the appointment is scheduled in. The guided text selection filtering works from the job sales screen, the schedule list, and the dispatch map. This will help your call takers and schedulers to correctly assign a technician based on which zone they are authorized to work in. So I do have samples of the different areas here. There's our job sales screen, and the little tooltip I have up tells you, if you hover over the list, you'll notice it's grayed out or has gray values to it. And then a little tooltip will pop up and it says that the text, only texts which are in the which tech to which zone file are associated with zone 2. We'll show on that list. Same thing with the schedule list, and then also with the dispatch map. You can shut off that filtering if you so choose by simply doing a right click on the list, and then you can turn off that filtering, and then it will display in red. But you'll see all of your technicians. Just a special little caveat note that's not really involved with the zone list. There is filtering available for required skill sets as well. So as long as you set that up, you can have this list even filtered further to show you only technicians in that zone that have the required skill set. All right, was there any questions about the which tech to which zone or the guided tech selection? All right, so let's talk about the zone planner. That's where all the planning happens. What makes up the zone planner? Well, the first thing that we'll note is in the upper left-hand corner of the zone planner, we will see the quantity of zones. This sets the number of zones that ServiceDesk expects to manage. Now, that being stated, you could potentially have a different value here and a different number of zones in your zone list file. If you do that, whenever you start ServiceDesk, you will get a message that will tell you how many zones you're supposed to have based on the quantity of zones set in the planner versus how many zones are derived by the zone numbers based inside of the zone list file. It is recommended that you make sure that those match because if they don't match, you're going to get that pesky message. And we all know how much you guys like getting those pesky messages from Glade. All right, so then the next portion we're going to talk about is the setup of the default capacities. So what do we mean? We're going to talk about this. Default capacities are set for each day of the week. These values are used to fill the potential capacities managed for the next 14 days, which of course leads us to the next section of the potential alter capacities. Here we can view and edit the capacities for the next 14 days inside of ServiceDesk. If you are manually changing the potential capacities on a regular basis, you may want to change your defaults to better fit the need. In addition, we now have a functionality that you can check that will auto zero out all of the major holidays. If you hover over that, you can pull up a tooltip that will indicate to you what those major holidays are. And there is a way to distinguish if you are Canadian versus US. What the heck is this capacity? So again, we want to define capacity for you. And we're going to focus here on the potential or suitable for holding, storing, or accommodating, the maximum amount of a number that can be contained or accommodated, the facility or power to produce, perform, or deploy, and then the maximum output. So we heard the word maximum there a couple times. So our capacity is the maximum amount of appointments we can handle on a particular day. Your capacity can be affected by the hours you operate, the days you are open, the number of technicians, and how many appointments each technician can do in a day. Remember, not all technicians are the same, and your capacities can be affected by their speed, expertise, drive time, and hours worked. For zone management, we need the capacity per day, our daily capacity going forward. In ServiceDesk, we refer to the capacity of a technician as his job capacity or his maximum job count. Each technician can have their own unique job capacity set in the tech detail windows of the ServiceDesk setting. Now, the job capacity in this case is not used for zone management, but when you are scheduling a particular technician or assigning appointments to a particular technician, that's where that job capacity comes in. We'll see why I brought up the job capacity as we move forward here in helping us to determine what our maximum daily capacity is. So how can I determine my company's total daily capacity? Well, what I want to do is take each of my technicians' capacities for that day and add them together. Meaning, if I want to find out what my maximum daily capacity for Monday is, I take all the technicians that are scheduled for Monday, I take their job count or their job capacity or maximum job count, and I add those together, and that would tell me my total daily capacity for that day. All right. So each day's daily capacity could be different, but we do figure out what that maximum daily capacity is based on the same process of Tech 1 capacity, Tech 2 capacity, through Tech X capacity, where X is the number of technicians that I have working on a single day. So now that I have my company's total capacity, now what do I do? Well, let's break it up into smaller, more manageable parts. Now that you have your capacity, we can break it up and assign it to your zones. We can apply capacity to a zone using different time slots. We have our morning or AM, which should be from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. We have our afternoon or our PM, which is 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Then we have evenings if you are using evenings, which would be after 5 p.m. And then we have our all-day appointments of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then each day of the week is another way that we can apply capacity to a zone. Depending on your zones are broken up, you may want to split your capacity equally amongst your zones. A lot of times zones are created to help isolate areas that are farther away or you want to farther away that you want to service only on specific days of the week or times of the day. In the latter, you are likely to break up your capacities and prioritize to give more capacity to certain zones than others. Remember, it's your company. Find what best fits you. When we sum up all of our allocated capacities for each of your zones per day, this should be your company's total daily capacity. So going back to what we calculated out to figure out how much capacity do we have based on the technicians that are working each day. When we break it up into these smaller chunks and apply those to the zones, the goal is to have the daily zone capacity, which is the AM slots plus the PM slots plus the after 5 p.m. slots and the all day slots should still meet the total daily capacity when I add up zone 1, zone 2 through zone X, where X is the number of zones that we have. All right, so we're going to continue talking about capacities a little bit by bringing it back into the zone planner and how we can view what our capacities are in the two main sections of the capacities inside of ServiceDesk. So the first thing that we have is we can filter our capacities by time slots. When we do this, we're going to see the listing of our capacities for the default capacities, as well as the potentially altered capacities being listed by the time slot selected up here underneath the section. And then we'll see that it actually breaks it down for us by zone. So in this case, in my example, I'm looking at the all day allotments. And then I can see that I have it broken down into zones 1 through 6 and how much availability is set per day in my default capacities for that particular time slot on those days. I then can also see that my next 14 days out, when I look at that, I can see what my altered capacities are there. And I can see that it carries over. Now, just a note, your default capacities are used to populate the potential alter capacities until somebody actually alters them. And you will notice that an altered value will have a red number instead of a black number. All right. The next part of that is we can actually go ahead and change our view to filter our capacities by zone. And in my example, I'm looking at zone 1. And what we'll note is that our capacities now for zone 1 will be listed by time slot. So we can see now that our default capacity and our potential alter capacity are now showing all day, morning, afternoon, evening, and emergency. So we can then see down in zone 1 the breakdown per day of those allotted time capacities. All right. Now, up here in the right-hand section of the planner, we will see that we have the ability to change the view from the allocations for a specific date to the holdbacks quantities of the days out. We'll also see that we have two buttons here. We have the OK button, which does the save and exit. And then we have the cancel button, which will then exit the window but not save any of our changes. Did somebody say holdbacks? Yes, I did. Don't want those demanding warranty companies taking all your availability. Want to reserve availability for parts installs and COD work. Holdbacks are going to be your friends. So holdbacks are the amount of your availability you want to hold back from being uploaded to third parties, which we integrate with. Now notice that I specifically said third parties there, and I did not say that it's going to hold back from all availability that is uploaded for other processes. At this point in time, holdbacks are not applied to your online scheduling because the idea is holdbacks are for consumers and as the main focus. And so you want that availability to be offered to your consumers who are then scheduling online. Holdbacks can be set for a specific number of slots or by a percentage of remaining availability. Well, what does that mean? Well, a specific number of slots means I can say I want to hold back 10 slots a day, and it will hold back 10 slots a day from each of my zones for each of my time, my allocated time slots. So if I say hold back 10 and I am holding, and my capacity up here in zone 1 is 12 for my all days, then I'm going to hold 10 of those back and only offer 2. All right. I can use a percentage of remaining, and what the percentage of the remaining does is that it then calculates what I currently have scheduled. It finds that slots nominally offered by taking the capacity minus what's been scheduled, and then I will offer a percentage of what's available to them. So if I hold back 30%, then I would offer 70%. Taking a nice round number like a 10, that would mean that I would be offering 7 of the 10 that I have available and not offering all 10. All right. The holdbacks can also be filtered, just like we could filter the capacity. The other thing to note is that the default capacity section does not change. It is literally only the right-hand section of the zone planner that will change, and now it becomes the holdback section here. So again, we're looking at this as being all day allotments or the holdbacks by time slot. So we'll hold back the specific time slot of all day, and then we can see zones 1 through 6 listed. We can filter that by zone as well, selecting zone 1 and then displaying the allotted time slots for all day, morning, afternoon, and evenings. All right. So any other questions at this point in time? Okay, we are pretty close to being done, so let's just wrap it up, and then we'll just open up for anything that anybody has questions about related to zone management. If we still have some time, then I might be able to field a couple questions outside of that. Zone management is not a cookie cutter process with a one-size-fits-all formula. It is about your company, your staff, your clientele, and your area of service. Zone management is a powerful tool. ServiceDesk Zonne Management can help your company manage your availability, which can improve optimizing, scheduling, and reduce overbooking. Is this the piece you are missing? Ta-da! Thanks. I hope you all enjoyed my webinar. If you do need to contact us, remember we do have our 800 number. We do have our support email, and you can also go to rossware.com. And then even submit requests through there, or you can initiate your connection if you need a support connection. So let's go ahead and just open up the remainder time for questions anybody has that I will try to answer to the best of my ability. All right. Does anybody want to ask questions not related to the Zone Manager system, and I will try to address them as best as possible. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. I'm so used to watching Glade's Q&As with you guys, and everybody gets to talk back and forth. This is a much different feel. Well, Sarah, looks like if there's no questions, do you want to go ahead and wrap it up now, or should we continue for a little bit?
We can wrap it up. This has been recorded and will be available for viewing on the United Servicers website. Kenton, we thank you so much for presenting this. And if you have any questions, you can contact Kenton directly, or you can email the administration at United Servicers and we can get the questions to Kenton.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you all for attending. Have a good day.